Isabella Rossellini was born into cinematic royalty, the daughter of two of the most iconic figures in the history of film. Her mother, the legendary actress Ingrid Bergman, and her father, the influential Italian director Roberto Rossellini, ignited a media firestorm in 1949 when they began a romantic relationship while both were still married to other partners. Their highly publicized affair shocked the world and triggered a major international controversy, casting a long shadow over their professional reputations and personal lives. For young Isabella, this meant growing up amid scrutiny, burdened by concerns about her parents' scandal that most children are spared from experiencing. From the very beginning, the relationship between Rossellini and Bergman faced immense strain and ultimately could not withstand the pressure. They separated when Isabella was still quite young, bringing an end to their tumultuous union. Yet, despite the challenges of their failed marriage, Isabella has often spoken of their unwavering dedication as parents. They remained deeply involved in their children's lives, crafting a unique and forward-thinking co-parenting arrangement. The siblings lived together in a shared home, while Ingrid and Roberto visited them separately, an unconventional setup that prioritized family unity and stability. This distinctive and often complex upbringing laid the groundwork for what would become Isabella's captivating and multifaceted career. She would go on to shine in a variety of roles, beginning with her breakout performance in the surreal cult classic Blue Velvet, which cemented her place as a bold and enigmatic screen presence. Beyond acting, Isabella became a prominent figure in the world of fashion, working as a top model for major international brands for decades. Eventually, she carved out her own path as a filmmaker and director, creating original works that reflect her intellect, wit, and creative independence. Through her diverse achievements, Isabella Rossellini has built a legacy that both honors her legendary parents and firmly stands apart from theirs, an artist in her own right, with a voice and vision uniquely her own. Isabella appeared on the show seeking answers to fundamental questions about a lesser-known branch of her family lineage. Although her mother, the celebrated actress Ingrid Bergman, was born and raised in Sweden, the loss of both parents at an early age left many parts of her background shrouded in mystery. As a young adult, Ingrid left her native country behind to chase her dreams in the world of film, which further distanced her from her familial roots. Because of these circumstances, Isabella grew up with only fragmented knowledge of her mother's ancestry. What she did carry, however, was a profound admiration for the resilience and strength Ingrid displayed in the face of adversity. While Ingrid largely forged her own path in life, Isabella believes her mother drew early inspiration from her father, Eustace Bergman. Eustace, a painter and amateur photographer, had a deep influence on Ingrid during her brief childhood before his life was tragically cut short. Despite his limited time with her, his creative spirit and artistic sensibilities left a lasting imprint on her character. Though Eustace may have indirectly sparked one of the most brilliant careers in cinematic history, his own beginnings were modest. Far from coming from privilege or notoriety, the Bergman family name, now synonymous with global fame, had surprisingly ordinary origins, rooted in a life of simplicity and hard work rather than glamour or legacy. The journey into Isabella's ancestry begins with a household census from the small Swedish town of Kronenberg, a quiet place where a remarkable story was quietly taking root. Though modest at first glance, the records revealed a narrative that felt both credible and compelling. One key figure to emerge from the documents was Johann, the earliest known ancestor to adopt the surname Bergman. While the exact reason he chose this name remains unclear, it marked the beginning of a family identity that would one day become globally recognized. What we do know is that Johann worked as a church organist, a respected position that likely involved not only playing the organ during services, but also leading the choir, a role of both musical and communal importance at the time. Our research also unearthed several previously unknown details about Johann's life, giving Isabella a richer understanding of the man who may have set the foundation for her family's artistic legacy. His life, though lived in a much simpler era, Johann represented the outermost edge of Isabella's knowledge regarding her maternal lineage. But our investigation was far from over. Shifting our focus to the ancestry of Johann's wife, Brita, we ventured deeper into Sweden's past, specifically into the rich historical archives of Jönköping County, located in the southern part of the country. Jönköping turned out to be a treasure trove for our research. The local records there were incredibly well-preserved and thorough, allowing us to trace Isabella's heritage through multiple generations. We were able to follow the threads of her family history all the way back to the 1600s, uncovering names, occupations, and life stories that had been tucked away for centuries in old parish books and civic registries. By this point, the paper trail had taken us as far as documented history could allow. But Isabella's story didn't end there. To explore her roots even further, beyond the reach of written records, we turned to the power of genetic testing. We began with an admixture analysis, a type of DNA test designed to provide insight into a person's ancestral origins over the past 5 centuries. This test breaks down heritage into regional percentages, offering a broader understanding of where a person's forebears may have lived and how their genetic legacy was shaped by migration and interconnection across continents. With written documents and now DNA as our guides, we prepared to uncover even deeper layers of Isabella's identity, those hidden in her very genes. For Isabella, the DNA results largely confirmed what the paper records had already suggested. Her genetic makeup was overwhelmingly consistent with her known heritage, 99.8% Northern European, with a tiny trace, just 0.1%, of Middle European ancestry. But just when it seemed the science had merely echoed the past, the test revealed something completely unexpected. As part of our process, we compared Isabella's DNA to the profiles of others who had participated in the series. What we discovered took everyone by surprise: a significant genetic match hidden within Isabella's own chromosomes, tangible evidence of a familial connection with someone else in the spotlight. She shares an identical stretch of DNA along her 6th chromosome with actress Scarlett Johansson, indicating they both inherited this segment from a distant shared ancestor. It's a strong genetic clue, pointing to a common lineage, almost certainly rooted in their shared Swedish ancestry. In that moment, Hollywood's past and present quietly collided, as Isabella found herself linked not only to cinematic legacy through her parents, but also by blood to another celebrated performer. A newfound cousin. A shared story written not just in history books, but in the very fabric of their DNA. As Isabella Rossellini stood at the crossroads of past and present, the tapestry of her heritage came into sharper focus, woven from artists, pioneers, and unexpected connections across time. What began as a search for lost names and forgotten stories had become something deeper, a rediscovery of identity, legacy, and belonging. In the faces of her ancestors, in the threads of her DNA, and even in the surprise of a newfound cousin, Isabella found not just history, but continuity. A reminder that the stories we carry are never just our own. They echo through generations, waiting to be remembered. And as one chapter ends, another quietly begins. The journey of discovery never truly stops.
Mia Farrow has been a Hollywood staple since 1968, when she starred in the classic horror film. Mia is a product of the golden era of cinema. Marino Sullivan, an actress, and John Farrow, a director, were her parents. Additionally, their fame was intrinsically linked to my initial performances. She performed for vacationers who visited the family's Beverly Hills residence, enlisting her siblings as her co-stars. Mia's professional career began at the age of 14 as a family endeavor. She made her debut in a feature film. Her father wrote and directed John Paul Jones, a revolutionary war drama in which she played a minor role. Although the experience did not quite meet her expectations, Mia quickly recovered from her regret. However, the subsequent position she was offered nearly derailed her career, as her father transitioned from a supporter to an opponent. The loss of a parent has distorted Mia Farrow's comprehension of her origins. Mia was only 17 years old when her father, John Farrow, passed away from a heart attack, leaving her with a limited understanding of his family. His entire upbringing is effectively shrouded in mystique. In an effort to track down his origins, we consulted the archives of Australia, the country where John was born in 1904. Joseph and Lucy, Lee's parents, were located, along with his birth certificate. Subsequently, we made an alarming discovery. Lucy was identified as a patient in the records of Callan Park, a mental institution, in 1905, when her father was only 1 year old. We were able to ascertain the individual who had admitted her to the facility. Mia's grandmother was afflicted with what her physicians identifies as a condition, as indicated in her case file: breastfeeding. It may appear preposterous, but this was a diagnosis that was frequently issued to young mothers during a period in which the symptoms now associated with postpartum depression were considered a form of lunacy. The records provided disquieting details, but it is impossible to determine the exact nature of Lucy's experiences. Regarding her confinement, March 31st, 1905, she is delusional and apprehensive in her mental state. After spending more than 2 years within the asylum's confines, Mia's grandmother never departed. In July 1907, Lucy succumbed to pneumonia. When she was scarcely past the age of 27, although her father's reticence was comprehensible, its repercussions were profound. Mia was unaware of the most fundamental aspects of his family history. For example, she was unaware of the family's origins or the manner in which they had arrived in Australia. We were able to address these inquiries by tracing his mother Lucy back 2 generations to Mia's great-great-grandparents, George and Susanna Savage, who arrived in Australia as agricultural laborers in 1848. Records indicate that they were immigrants from southern England, where Mia's roots extended for centuries. This revelation provided her with a profound comprehension of her father's family tree and introduced her to a particular progenitor whose name would prove particularly poignant. We had previously disclosed the distressing narrative of Lucy Savage, Mia Farrow's paternal grandmother, who passed away at the age of 27 in an asylum. We now turn to the individual who incarcerated her in that asylum. Joseph Farrow, Mia's patriarch, and I had our first ever face-to-face encounter. Why Joseph committed his wife to an institution remains unknown. However, we are aware that his existence was not without its challenges following Lucy's demise. He raised his son as a single parent while working as a carpenter until 1915, when he entrusted me to his aunt as his father. Subsequently, he volunteered to participate in World War I. Joseph, who was 36 years old at the time, was considered too elderly to be a soldier. However, he was soon compelled to participate in one of the most violent conflicts of the war. His regiment was dispatched to the Gallipoli Peninsula, where Allied troops famously and tragically advanced over open terrain against fortified Turkish lines, resulting in a slaughter. The world was appalled by this. We presented Mia with a journalistic account of the events that her grandfather may have observed. Gallipoli was one of the most catastrophic Allied losses of the entire conflict. Mia's grandfather was fortunate to survive the battle. However, his fortune was lacking. Failure to maintain. He contracted malaria 9 months later, and the army declared him perpetually unsuitable for military service after languishing in a hospital for months. At the age of 45, he succumbed to a cardiac condition that was likely exacerbated by his illness. We are now embarking on a journey to trace the origins of Joseph. We discovered that he was born in Australia in 1879, and as we had observed with his wife Lucy, his ancestors were English. This information was derived from a succession of vital documents. He was passed down to me as my 5th great-grandfather after traveling 3 generations. an individual named Thomas Farrow, who was born in Norfolk, England, around 1690. My guess's paper trail had now been exhausted. It was time to investigate the potential of DNA to reveal her more profound origins. We initiated the process with an admixture test, which identifies an individual's ancestral lineage over the past 500 years, with percentages delineated according to the general regions in which their ancestors resided. The outcomes were consistent with the evidence presented in the paper trace. Mia is 99.8% European and 0.1% Middle Eastern. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a like and share it with someone who might benefit from it too. Got questions or thoughts? Drop them in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And if you want more content like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. See you in the next one.